I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, July the 7th, brought to you in part by Zoetis, where we had lighter receipts here on our big high volume Monday sales. And it makes me think that maybe we have completely caught up now on our feeder cattle marketing, not your fed cattle marketing, because we got a lot of heavy cattle out there yet, but I think we are likely caught up there. Also, we didn't see very big runs because maybe people didn't get around. They were busy with their families and things over the weekend. They didn't get around and get those cattle up and get them to the sale for Monday. There was a few places that maybe had some wet conditions and couldn't get them out for that reason, but not as widespread as the lighter receipts were, but they were just a fraction of what they were last week. And then you get up into the Midwest and in the Northern Plains, the upper Midwest and Northern Plains, you saw several of your high volume Monday sales up there actually take Monday off for the holiday, which normally don't see that taking a post-holiday break, but they did, and so that's going to bring about lighter receipts. And even though we normally see the shutdown before the holiday, I would say your weekly feeder cattle auction receipts will be lighter this week than they were last week, because your sales that they did have last week were Monday through Wednesday, and they were all huge. They were big, heavy receipt sales, and then they didn't have much on Thursday and Friday, but was as light as Monday is here. And then I don't see any big runs coming, and it's supposed to get really hot here mid to late week, so I'd say we are getting lighter on receipts, and we're probably about caught up on our feeder cattle marketings. I wanted to mention a little bit, as I think a lot of you guys that can relate. It was a real shock, a sad shock, to see the passing of Charlie Daniels on Monday, and he was a big influencer, I know, in my life, and the child of the 70s and the early 80s, and I think probably a lot of you guys, or and gals too, maybe grew up standing in the front pickup seat next to your dad, not with a car seat, but standing in the pickup seat next to your dad while he had 8 tracks blaring of Waylon Jennings, Hank Jr., and Charlie Daniels. And that was definitely the way I was. You know, I was a long-haired country boy, and really related to his songs. And later in life, he was one of those singers that got bold enough, and he had enough age to him that he could sing patriotic songs and kind of no-nonsense songs that people could relate to and really get behind. I'll never forget the first time I heard him say, "Go and lay your hand on a Pittsburgh Steeler fan," and I thought he wrote that song for me because I thought that Terry Bradshaw and Jack Lambert walked on water also. But just thinking about the times that we're in right now, we really needed a voice like his. And we don't have very many of those. He could come out and get on a talk show and tell it like it is, and people would stop and listen a little bit. And we're really going to miss him. I tell you what, just thinking about all that, I grew up in eastern New Mexico and dreamed about the South. I like those singers that was singing about the South every Friday night at 7 o'clock in the evening. I was planted in front of that TV to watch the Dukes of Hazzard, and I thought that was the greatest thing, and I was just in love with the Southland. And when I was watching the General Lee go by and hearing Waylon talk about him, I saw that flag on the roof of that car, and it never dawned on me that there was anything racist about that. I thought it was just Southern pride. I knew about the Civil War, and then a lot of people there, their descendants, had fought in the Civil War, and they had a lot of pride about that, and they were still proud Americans, but they had a lot of pride about the region of the country that they lived in, and I thought all that was great too. And as I got a little bit older, I got to go to Tennessee. I had a granddad that had some land out there, and we'd go out there once or twice a year and check on it, and enjoyed going that. But I really wanted to go to the Deep South. And my first job when I left college was an internship job with USDA to go to South Georgia and learn how to report markets and grade livestock, and tell you what, my first boss there, Ernie Morgan, I tell you what, he thought anybody north of Macon, Georgia was a Yankee. and I mean, just bled that stuff. And man, I thought it was cool to be down there, and they had a lot of Civil War history, and I took a lot of that in and everything. But it was at that time when I saw the remnants of what they were talking about. You know, I remember on Mondays I used to work a graded hog buying station, and I'd help the guys unload the hogs, and then was training on how to grade those hogs, and they'd get paid on that. But sometimes they'd have an old black man bring in you know, the hogs and unload them, and I just couldn't understand. He would never make eye contact with me. And I was jovial, and I talked to everybody that backed up there and wanted to find out who they were, and you know, you couldn't get a word out of them, and it made me feel bad. I still didn't think that I was racist or that anything about that flag was racist, but I saw what they talked about, and I understood the kind of where it was at. Wasn't proud of it, but it was just kind of the way it was. And then I also could see how the descendants of those old men kind of had a chip on their shoulder, and I think that's kind of where we're at now, guys. But sure going to miss guys like Charlie Daniels to write a song that will kind of make us relate to what's going on, and hopefully ease some tempers and cause people to think about things in the right way. But you know, as we look at these markets, you know, I kind of apologize for being so bearish here for the last couple of weeks. It's just that these fundamentals are not making sense on what people are doing. So I guess just throw them out. I guess it doesn't make any difference anymore. We've got some of your prognosticators and the experts there, your technical people there, keep telling us that this thing has got more to go. And how could it, and how could these charts be reading right when we've been through all the topsy-turvy stuff through the COVID-19 and everything that's been going on? How those charts could be predictable and reliable, I don't know. But I have been around this long enough to know that if everybody's looking at those charts the same way and they're reacting to them the same way, then you really can't fight it. It's like you guys that love your Hereford cows. And instead of getting mad when you go to the sale and seeing that the black cattle bring more money, throw a black bull on there and have some black baldies, because you can't fight the system, and everybody's kind of in that mode right now. And then about the time when we get to the point where we think the fundamentals are going to give us some at least moderate or a little bit of bullishness, then that'll be the time, I guess, to get bearish. I don't know. But as long as this deal's riding, I tell you what, let's enjoy it. And we're getting the bulk of all these yearling grass cattle sold pretty well. Not that these guys are getting rich off of them, but these backgrounders, these grazers, they need to make some money this time, and likely they are going to make some money if this market kind of holds together as we get at least through the mid to late part of July into early August. Most of them will be gone then, and then most of your guys that are selling their summer yearlings, you know, later on, that don't have the double stock to deal with and all that, they'll be able to take advantage of that and get their cattle sold either on a video or contracted or something like that. But don't mean to be a spoil sport and being bearish all the time, but I'm just telling you, these fundamentals just do not add up, and those cattle out there, the big heavy fat cattle, have not disappeared. The hole that we have, because we had a couple of months of light placements on your cattle on feed report, the hole that we're going to have late this fall, when those cattle would have normally come out, it's not going to be big enough to hold all those cattle that we're keep pushing back, guys. But you know, until it all comes to fruit, let's enjoy this positive market and hope that it keeps going like this, because we got a lot of cattle to get sold. Let's talk about the board on Monday. August live cattle futures up 70 cents at $100.10. October up $1.25 at 103.92. I mean, these aren't you know, eye-popping sales. You know, we're just dangling right over $1 here on the board, but compared to what our fat cattle are bringing, it does look pretty good. The thing of it is the basis is jihad now, and I told you guys we're in a bastard month right now because we're in July and we don't have a July to look at, so we have to look at August. That lots of things can happen between now and when your cash market has to start behaving, because we're in the spot month. So it's kind of a scary time right now. You go on your out fronts on your live cattle futures, they're up 40 cents to up 112. August feeder cattle up $1.27 at 136.15. That's for next month. 800-pound steers 136.15. Our index or levels now are dangling under 130 there. So it looks like we've got some run up to do in this cash market, and let's whip and spur and see if we can't catch up with this board. September up 137 at 137.22. You go on out from there, they were up 55 cents to up 130. Your weighted average on last week's fed cattle trade negotiated in your 5-area feeding region. Holiday week, guys. Board was closed on Friday. Most everybody was already zoned out by Thursday. And they sold 110,200 head in the 5-area feeding region. That compares to just 75,600 the week before and only 72,000 the same week a year ago. So big negotiated trade, and we've been seeing a lot of negotiated trade here as we've moved through this coronavirus, and now we would have gotten over this if there was any better kick to these formula cattle. But I think these packers, with the investigations that are going on, the big push for mandated negotiated trade, a lot of things are going on there. We got lawsuits out there. We've got a lot of things going on out there, and they're just trying to put up as much of a front that they're being kind of on the up and up and buying cattle. We've got a wide price range on our fat cattle we have had here for the last few months. And we did this past week. If you looked, we sold live steers and heifers in your 5-area feeding region from 91 all the way up to 98, with a weighted average price on live steers at $94.87. A lot of them brought 95 bucks. But that was down $1.34 compared to the weighted average from the previous week. Your dressed steers and heifers range from 148 to 155. With a weighted average price on dressed steers at $153.84. That was down 94 cents. So not too much down, but we are continuing to lose ground, and we've got weighted average prices on live cattle, cash cattle, in the lower 90s, and everybody thinks this market is gangbusters. So don't tell them it's not, I guess. Nationwide, negotiated cash sales 127,300 head, and only 7% of those for the 15 to 30 day delivery, and our negotiated grids were all about the same. Everything's just kind of going back to the same as we would normally have. I know we're not in normal conditions yet, but our slaughter's about where it was. Our trade's getting back there, even though we got more negotiated trade and we've got a wider price range, but that's kind of making it look like there's competition out there, whether there is or not. And we still continue to see weird deals like your packers coming out on Monday and buying some fancy cattle up in the Midwest, Iowa and Nebraska, 2,600 in Iowa and 650 in Nebraska at $160 dressed. Wow. We had some people coming out and saying, well, the packers didn't get enough cattle bought last week. Really? 110,200 head just in your 5 area, 127,000 plus negotiated nationwide, plus all the formulas, plus the contracts, plus the negotiated grid. I don't know. I still think that this is not a real market out there. $160. Now, they did have them quoted as over 80% choice. Well, I thought all the cattle were over 80% choice anymore. Our average is like 83% choice or better, and that's including, even down the southern plains and everywhere. So I don't know, that looks a little curious to me, but a lot of cattle brought 160. I would bet quite a bit that won't be our price for the week at 160, but they did come out and buy some that way. Kansas sold 1,300 head about steady with last week from 93 to 95. Texas didn't sell anything. Let's talk about feeder cattle for a little bit. Real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Monday at 129.49, up 83 cents. And that is, if you'll notice that that weighted average weight there is 814 pounds. Lets you know there's a lot of cattle weighing in the upper weights that are going into that category, because that's from 7 to 899 pound steers there, but a lot of heavy 8-weight cattle in there. So really you could tack on a little more to that price there and likely get it up closer, maybe over 130. And if you see a string of cattle you like, especially if they're green right off grass, you're going to have to give more than 130 on them for 8-weight steers. Talking to my friend Jared Herman there at Cherokee Sales there in Cherokee, Oklahoma, he said this Thursday he's going to have a lot of green grass yearlings. He said it's starting to get dry out there. They had real good grass early, had some beneficial rains early, but that 100-degree heat and them 30, 40 mile an hour winds, they just sapped it out of them. Guys liking the price pretty good. They're bringing yearlings in. He said likely he'll have 3,000 plus yearlings in there, and they'll be in big strings and be the kind, guys. Let's talk about some of your sales on Monday. Okay, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma National Stockyards, only 4,500. They've been selling 8, 9, 10, 11,000 plus every week. Since we come out of the worst of the COVID, 4,500. And you can't tell me that there was that many people with firework burns that didn't want to get out there and get their cattle up to get them moved in there on Sunday. I don't know. It's just lighter receipts. Feeders, $2 to $6 higher. Likely it had a lot to do with the light supplies there, because you had several buyers in there with orders, and which it kept the price up big again. A few calves sold steady, not really well tested. Joplin Regional Stockyards, I told you they sold 27,000 cattle through the ring the last 2 weeks, and then they come in here this Monday with only 4,600, which is, you know, that's still a lot of cattle, but for these big high volume Monday sales like that, they can sure easily get a lot more than that. But and I don't think there was any reason there that they wouldn't have got the cattle brought in either. But steers and heifers, they're steady to $3 higher. Look at the stick out sale from Joplin. 55 head of 834 pound steers bring $132. And a quote for the day was out of Bluegrass Stockyards, Lexington, Kentucky. 69 head of 730 pound steers bring $140.95. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.